If you ever want to experience scaling your business past $30,000 a month, $50,000 a month, then I urge you to pay attention to today's training, as it has the potential to help you overcome the greatest obstacle that every founder faces when you're on your path to scaling past your first six-figure profit month. Okay, so most people who on their way to scaling past $1 million a year business, they get stuck at this 30K, 40K, 50K a month mark. Okay, and I today, after kind of like talking to one of our clients who's stuck around 30K to 40K per month, who's been there for maybe even a year, I was like, okay, something is off. Something doesn't make any sense. Okay, and I realized that there's common patterns between companies that get stuck here, because if you really think through it, in my opinion, I believe that the moment where you acquire product market fit, service market fit, where you know who to sell to, you know what problem you need to solve for them, you know what you want to sell to them, what solution you're going to be selling to them, and then you know the price point and you get them to transact with you, then as soon as you validated that, you should be able to get to $100,000 a month, right? Because it's literally a function of repeating the actions that got you to get that first client, right? So how come every founder, most of them get stuck between 30K a month, 50K per month? Okay. Today, I want to explain to you why that's the case. And it's really simple. It's really, really simple. What is it? It's simply that most people don't have the depth and the clarity on how and why they make the money they make. Let me explain. For you to be able to get to 100K per month, you need to be aggressive. You need to have courage. And courage comes from conviction. You will not have conviction if the only thing you know about how you make money comes from the following. Let's say you're a growth firm that helps law firms. You're an agency that helps law firm, let's say, implement a growth infrastructure that allows them to scale, right? So the only thing you know about these firms is, okay, I help law firms get leads and appointments, and I charge $6,000 for it, or $7,000 or $9,000. Okay, and then the only thing you know about your client acquisition process is that you put ads together. It could be graphics, it could be videos, it could be carousel ads, it could be a social funnel, it could be a VSL funnel. It doesn't really matter, right? But you just generally know how you go about acquiring clients, right? And then the next thing you know about your sales process, you just know broadly that leads, they opt in, then a percentage of them book a call, and then a percentage of them show up for a sales call, and then somehow a percentage of them end up giving you money, right? And then about fulfillment, well, kind of broadly what you need to do. You need to set up their CRM, you need to set up their funnel, you need to set up their sequences, you need to launch their campaign, and maybe give them a setter or a triager or an AI kind of like assistant setter to convert and nurture these leads and qualify them before they show up for their appointment. Okay. Broadly, you understand this. Okay. So you're maybe spending 3 grand a month on ads. At the end of the month, you end up making 30K a month cash collected. But you have, your cost to fulfill is getting a little bit high. It's becoming 10K, 20K per month. So you end up being stuck in this phase, in this limbo, where you're like, well, I spent 33 grand, I made 30K, but I ended up spending 10, 15K on fulfillment. I'm left with, let's say, $10,000 a month. So next month, I don't have the courage to be able to reinvest the 10 grand or spend 5K and be left with 5K a month, right? Like when you're only making 10 grand a month in profit, you're always questioning the worth of your next investment in acquisition, right? But you have to understand that that shouldn't be the case. Your growth can be way more than what it actually is. Your profit margins can be way bigger than what they actually are, and your current team that's fulfilling on 30 grand a month can actually fulfill on 100 grand, 150 grand worth of clients. So your inability to scale this business and be more aggressive is the exact reason why you're stuck. Okay? Scaling affords you more profits. Scale affords you more margins. Making profit does not necessarily make you courageous and allow you to access more scale. But by growing, you end up growing. It's a weird thing. But how do you grow? In my opinion, this is the thing that most people don't ever do once they get to 30K per month. You have to be dialed in. You need to seek optimization. Key thing around scaling past 30K per month is optimization, right? So check this out. You go from only believing or knowing that you go after law firms to auditing the data of every single person who's giving you money. I want you to audit what was the number one pain that made them even pay attention to the ad, that made them want to book a call, that made them want to buy the solution in the first place. I want you to audit and find out what is the number one desire that made people want to click on the ad, that made people give you money. Okay. Then I want you to also audit and find out about who is getting the highest value from the thing you're selling them, who got it the fastest. Then I want you to also audit who is the highest spender from the clients you've acquired. Okay. What this will give you is it will give you it will give you data on a single avatar. Okay. It will give you what I call the perfect human that you should pay attention to. Okay. No more saying you go after law firms. Law firms, there's a dime a dozen. Like it's like there's so many type of law firms and so many people running law firms that you calling out law firms calls out almost like everybody. But not everybody cares about what you're selling. They're all at different segments or at different parts in the journey of running a law firm, right? So you should focus on finding clarity on who spends the most, who gets the highest value, who gets it the fastest, what is the number one thing that they want, and what is the number one pain that they want to to overcome. When it comes to acquisition, I want you to know what is the type of ad, what is the copy that gets you the cheapest cost per lead, maybe not cheap because cheap doesn't really mean anything, but what gets you the highest quality lead. And then I want you to know what is your cost per book call that, cost per book call, cost per book call that actually shows up. And I also want you to relate this back to the ideal avatar. What is how much is it costing you to get this perfect human as a lead, as a call, as a call that shows up? And how much does it cost you to actually get them? What is the cost to acquire a client? Okay. Once you know all of this from top to bottom, literally from the ad that you create to the messaging to the sequences to the show up rate, all that good stuff, then you know a little bit better than someone who's just focusing on a VSL funnel or like a social funnel or like cold outreach. It doesn't really matter. Okay. You need to get granular with every single metric on the acquisition side. Okay. On the sales process, the number one thing you need to focus on is sales cycle length. It's not enough to know that you close deals at 15% or 20%. That doesn't matter, right? You need to know how long does it take from someone entering your ecosystem, literally from first contact to them giving you money. And I want you to attribute it to each avatar. The perfect human not only has to be the perfect CAC, but it also has to be the shortest sales cycle. So you have to almost like align all these metrics where you need to find the person who gets the most value and who spends the most amount of money with you. Then you need to be able to afford them. So you need to have a CAC that is really good. Okay. Cost to acquire a lead, cost to acquire an appointment. Let's say keep it at that. Then you need to figure out who buys the fastest, what is the shortest sales cycle, and who is that person, who's the person that comes in with such a big pain point that they're like, hey, here's money, please take my money and just serve me. You want to know who is the person that gives you the shortest sales cycle. Okay. Then you also want to preferably optimize cash collected from revenue. What is that relationship? Are you cash collecting only 20% upfront? Are you cash collecting 70% upfront? These two businesses can afford scale, like the person who has collects 70% of their money up front versus the business that collects only 20 or 30%, it's night and day. The level of courage you have as a business that collects 70% of the money up front, you have so much courage, you have so much profit, you go to bed and you have so much money left over that you're like, let's go acquire more clients, let's do business. But if you're only cash collecting 20 or 30%, you end up being like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm able to even make payroll next month, so I'm not going to spend on marketing, right? So you end up being stuck. And of course, there are more metrics here that you could look at, but for now, you just understand who is the person that buys from you the fastest from the moment that they get into your ecosystem to the moment that they actually give you a dollar. And you also want to optimize your, cash to revenue rate. Okay. On delivery, which is super important, by the way, too, you need to understand the time to launch. How fast does someone give you money, and how fast does it take for them to launch and get activated? Okay. To know the reason why you need to know this is because if your time to launch and time to value is really bad, then it's because you don't have clarity on what are the fastest ROI activities that you do that actually impact this speed to value, speed to activation on your fulfillment. Okay. And then people who are here who only think of, oh, I'm going to launch ads, I'm going to build their offer, I'm going to build their funnel, I'm going to build this. That doesn't mean anything. It's useless. It's just activities. There might not even be valuable. It might not even be valuable for you to install a CRM. It might not be valuable for you to launch ads for these businesses, right? So what you need to do is you need to start tracking time to launch and time to value. Not necessarily time to ROI. ROI can be much later, but how fast do people get activated? How fast do they get some level of leads, qualified leads, appointments, all that good stuff, right? And then what are the activities that lead to the shortest time to launch? Okay. And what I want you to do is anything that does not contribute to time to value and time to an ROI, I want you to delete it. Make your fulfillment so simple that people are going to be like, oh, but I was expecting more. No, what you expect is fast delivery and fast time to ROI. You need to tell your clients like more is not better. What matters is what matters. Okay. Most companies who are stuck at 30K per month couldn't answer this. They don't have data about this. They never prioritize looking at the boring stuff. And that's why you get stuck here, because you just never end up making enough profit to have the courage to scale. But margins only come from optimization and dialing in every single function, every single variable in your business. So, contrary to what most people think that to scale, let's say if you make 10 grand last month, people think that, oh, just do more, right? Do more of what works. But you have to understand that there's always a lot of things that works in a specific motion. Like, let's say like a VSL funnel. A lot of people would be like, oh, just spend more money on ads for a VSL funnel. But that doesn't actually make you more money. It might actually make you go bankrupt because you did not do the prerequisite, which is find what works within what works. Okay, this is my way of saying it. It could be said better. Okay, but within a strategy that makes you a return, you actually want to find the variables that have the highest kind of like output and like output within the actual motion and strategy as a whole, right? So you want to figure out in a VSL funnel, let's say, you want to test different VSL lengths, you want to test different messaging, you want to test different creative style. Do you want to do AI animation? Do you want to do a selfie video that you're recording? Do you want to do graphics? You want to test those things. Every single thing needs to be tested. On your offer, you need to figure out who within your market actually cares the most for your offer and who spends the most amount of money and who's easy to find and who gets the most value from working with you without being a needy client. The difference between finding out the person who gets the most value with the least amount of effort from your fulfillment team is so valuable, to the point that if you just treat every client as equal and you just get anybody who can give you money onboarded, you will not scale. It will create so much chaos in your fulfillment that your team is not going to be able to scale. I mean, you're not even going to be able to remove yourself from your fulfillment because you give everyone everything, right? So today, one of the things we're going to be doing with this client is uncovering all these things. They're already making 30, 50 grand a month. Like, why not make 500 grand a month? 500 grand a month will only be achieved once we delete, once we focus, and then we can increase the volume of activities. But never increase volume of activities until you have clarity at every single layer in your business. Okay? So go deep if you want to make more money. Specific if you want to make more money. Be focused. Do not just do more things. Okay? Do not confuse movement with progress. Never confuse movement with progress. Just because you're recording a bunch of ads, just because you're doing a bunch of outreach, just because you're losing money, just because you're losing sleep does not actually mean that you deserve growth. It just means that you're busy. And any person who's busy just ends up only deserving being tired, being stressed, and that's it. That's the only outcome of being busy. Growth comes from focused activities. And I thought I would make this video because I hope it reminds you that you already know the answers, but the next stage of your career, of your business, will come from you taking the time to look at data, to audit your numbers, to look at what works at every single variable in your funnel, in your business. Okay. And eventually it will be within the employees that you have in your company. For me, on my scale, where we're making, millions of dollars every single year, the thing that I focus on is people. I'm like, what are you doing today? How does that move the needle? Right? I'm literally having to set up a KPI for every single person because without it, we're going to end up in entropy and literally shut down the business. That's how it works. So focus is the answer. Anyway, I don't want to stretch this out too long, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. I think this was an important thing to kind of like go over, to just go over the importance of going deep and not just thinking that once you've made your first client, you just need to do more and more and more. Okay. Love y'all. Have a beautiful day. Bye bye.